Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good to see you there.
Same here.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Speaker, a few questions to the proponent of the bill.
Please proceed, sir.
I've been listening to this debate, which has been going on for some time, and obviously getting a sense of direction as to what we are trying to accomplish in moving this legislation forward today. So with that in mind, Mr. Speaker, what we are trying to do is just to, today, if this were to pass, so that I'm clear as to what is it that we are doing, is it just saying yes to early voting, or are we also going to work out the details as to how this early voting will take place? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the representative for the question. If this resolution passes this body today, nothing changes. There may be no changes to election law if this resolution passes today. Ultimately, if this resolution is approved by the state residents of the state of Connecticut, nothing changes to election laws. The change to election law will be made by this body ultimately down the road should this resolution pass. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
So through you, Mr. Speaker, I was not clear. If this resolution passes, nothing changes. I heard that in the election laws. I got that. But then what change will happen? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The change that will happen will be dictated by the members of this body, so it's speculation for me to stand here and tell you what specific changes will occur. I don't know. It'll be dependent on the members of this body to make those changes. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So till we have the number in the vote count, which we will not know what's going to happen, I get that. No, but my question was more directed to the details that we see in this bill as amended as to whether it is going to be the 8 hours in a day, is it going to be 2 days, is it going to be 5 days, all of those details. Is that going to be decided in this bill today, or is that work in progress? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the representative for the question. The resolution before this body today outlines the scope of what ultimately could be decided upon by this body. So it's, in a sense, sets the parameters for what we could, the parameters for what we could decide. Should this resolution pass this body today and ultimately receive the support of the residents of the state of Connecticut, the guidelines and parameters that this body then will be used to dictate are contained in the resolution. So at that point in time, should it get that far, it may not, who knows, should it get that far, this body will be in a position to dictate the early voting with 14 days prior to election, maximum 5 days, minimum of 2 days, 8 hours per day. That'll be up to this body. This body could ultimately say we only want 1 day of voting, 1 hour each day. This body could say we want 5 days of voting, we want the Saturday and Sunday before election day, and the prior Saturday and Sunday before election day for 4 hours each day. The resolution before us sets the guidework and framework for ultimately what will be decided by this, the specifics that will be decided by this body should it receive the support of the state of Connecticut. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the good representative for clarifying as to what is it that we will accomplish with this resolution moving forward today. Through you, Mr. Speaker, we've heard the stresses that there are on towns and municipalities. So if this were to move forward, will this be a mandate that we'll be passing on to our municipalities, or if this were to become effective, would that also, the cost of that, would that be borne by us at the state? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, should this resolution get through these chambers, and assuming it's approved by the residents of the state of Connecticut, any costs associated with further implementing it will be dictated by this body. So it's impossible for me to stand here today and say it's a mandate or the cost of the mandate that may be associated with it, because I don't know the specific terms that ultimately will be determined by this body. I don't know if it'll be 8 hours a day, I don't know if it'll be 1 hour a day, I don't know if it'll be 2 days, 5 days, 4 days. Until those issues are determined by this body, at that point we'll be able to determine the fiscal impact on the municipalities of the state of Connecticut. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I do get that we won't know the exact cost because obviously we haven't worked out the details as to whether it's going to be 2 days or 5 days, and the cost is going to vary depending on that. If you're going to be open for 8 hours, or are we going to be open for 12 hours? I get all of that. But my question is, whatever the cost is, whether it be X, Y, or Z, or multiple times of that, will that cost be borne by the municipalities, or will that be something that will be the responsibility of the state? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ultimately, the cost of elections will be assumed by the municipalities in which they occur. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
So through you, Mr. Speaker, if I'm hearing that clear, regardless of what the cost is, all our towns, all our municipalities, if this were to move forward, when it does, and if it does, will be an unfunded band-aid to our municipalities. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just would like to reiterate: what's before us today is not an unfunded mandate. There are no costs to be incurred by municipalities as a result of this resolution. Ultimately, should this resolution receive the support of the voters of the state of Connecticut, and this body then dictates the specifics as to how it's going to be implemented, at that point in time, there may be costs associated with municipalities. Through Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank for the clarification. And that was what my question was, that when it does become effective, if and when it does, through the process, whatever the process is, and whatever the time factor it takes, whether it takes 1 cycle, 2 cycles, or many more. But at the end of the day, the cost of implementing this resolution, the details of that, will be borne by the municipality. And I just want to make sure that the good representative confirms that. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assuming that this legislation were to pass, get through the process, and terms be dictated by this body to outline early voting procedures, then at that point in time, costs associated with those procedures, which at this point are speculative, would be incurred by the municipalities. That's correct. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, could a municipality have the option of opting out and saying that, yes, we heard this, we hear that this has been passed, but my town of Glastonbury, will it have the option of opting out? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, that would be dictated by the terms as outlined by this body. If this body in its wisdom were to say early voting is going to pertain to X, Y, and Z towns, and X, Y, and Z towns would fall under that. But again, those are terms and specifics that would be dictated by this body at a later time. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, and my final question is, we know we have absentee ballots. We have that already in place, and we know it's very effective because anybody and everybody can cast their vote, using that format if they happen not to be in town or they're not able to go to the voting booth on that particular day. Through you, Mr. Speaker, what I'm not able to understand still, in spite of all this debate, is the added advantage when we already have absentee ballot, when that is already in place. What is it that we gain with this early voting? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the representative for the fine question. Currently, in state statute, the absentee ballot is limited to 6 categories of individuals who may obtain one. This would open up the door to all individuals to early vote. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Srinivasan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the good representative for his answers. I, too, am concerned because as I see options that we have the absentee ballot, and maybe that might be an area where we can explore to make it far more efficient than where we are right now. That's always a viable option, A. And B, it's a mandate to the municipalities, and we know our municipalities are stressed. Yes, this is not happening in 2017, 2018. I get that. But this is the starting of a journey, and I want to make sure if this journey were to continue and we were finally, yes, voted by the residents of our state, ultimately the bill is going to be borne by you and me in an indirect way through the municipalities that we all live in. And I have not heard any statistics at all from the good representative saying that because of the fact that we have early voting, the turnout at the end of the day, the election, more people participate in the system, which is what we all want. We definitely agree with that. One thing common among all of us in the chamber is we want more participation. We want the voices of our residents to be heard loud and clear. No question about that at all. Whereas I did hear from this side of the aisle statistics saying that actually the participation drops in the few examples that you have given. So I do have significant concerns and reservations with this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.